No, I mean, because when you're thinking of victims of this awful world, you think of Michelle Obama and how terrible we've all been to her. This woman is a one-woman destitution derby. Every time we check in on her at her podcast, she is feeling sorry for herself. She is criticizing Barack Obama or this country. She never has a positive word to say about.
Just came off a junket. I think you remember, Megan. She went to Berlin. A private leftist group asked her to speak, and it was for $750,000 for 60 minutes. It worked out to about $12,000 a minute. And it was very funny about her because I only bring this up because in that interview, I think you remember, she was making fun of capitalism. She said it's supposed to trickle down, but it doesn't even trickle down now. And I'm thinking, well, you just made $12,500 a minute. And you know what, Michelle? You were asked to speak on DEI, but you didn't speak on E. You only spoke on D and I.
Beneath the spotlight and scripted speeches, the Michelle Obama myth finally cracked wide open. Megyn Kelly and Victor Davis Hanson didn't just criticize. They unleashed a merciless roast that tore the glossy facade to shreds, torching every carefully rehearsed talking point. From the choreographed moments of sorrow to the sprawling mansion disguised as modest living, nothing escaped the fire. This wasn't a polite disagreement. It was a full-scale demolition of the brand America had been conditioned to admire without question. If you thought Michelle stood above reproach, brace yourself. The curtain isn't just falling, it's crashing down with the force of a wrecking ball in the middle of prime time.
J6 to right that ship. Enter Michelle Obama. All the speculation about whether Biden can make it. And he got lost even at the last event. He was wandering around on the stage when he made his January 6th remarks. Jill Biden had to save him. Enter Michelle Obama, who sits down on this popular podcast, though I've never heard of it, but apparently it's popular, with this guy. She has nothing to promote. She has no book. She has no event. So that means she called them and said, I have something to say. And she very clearly has something to say.
Tucker or one, they say these things that aren't true, whether it's Michelle Obama talking about black lives being indiscriminately almost daily killed on the street, or Andrew Cuomo with the worst record about the virus and then bragging as if it was the best, because there is no media as we used to know it. NBC, ABC, the network news, CNN, MSNBC, PBS, NPR, they're fused with the progressive movement in general and the Democratic Party in particular.
If you're enjoying this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel, smash that bell icon, and stick around. Michelle Obama, someone who transformed a White House wardrobe into a fashion revolution, yet somehow left with a legacy built far more on blockbuster book deals than actual political backbone. Megyn Kelly and Victor Davis Hanson took one glance at this polished monument of PR perfection and decided to turn it into a full-scale comedy demolition derby. Because beneath the layers of Vogue covers, late-night talk show dance routines, and carefully curated outrage lies one of the most gloriously overrated political figures of the past 2 decades. And the roast didn't begin with hesitation. It opened with a flamethrower aimed straight at the myth-making machine, turning the glow into smoke before the applause could even fade.
Your speech was diversity and inclusion, but why didn't you put equity in there? Because it's pretty unequal for you to get $12,500, which is more than most people in the world make an entire year. You made in a minute. And so they have this bad habit, the Obamas, that every time there's a social justice question, whether it was George Floyd or economic downturn, they appear. Sometimes they appear from Kalorama, sometimes from Martha's Vineyard, sometimes from the new Hawaii mansion, sometimes from their old Chicago digs. But they come out and they lecture the country on its illiberal tendencies.
Megyn Kelly wasted absolutely no time peeling back the icon sticker. She dove headfirst into exposing the absurd idea that Michelle Obama's popularity somehow equals actual credibility. Being a well-dressed motivational speaker doesn't magically turn you into a policy expert. It makes you a brand, plain and simple. Michelle has spent years marketing herself with all the slickness and charm of a corporate mascot, always smiling perfectly for the cameras while skillfully sidestepping any real substance or tough questions. She's been meticulously packaged, heavily promoted, and polished into this flawless image of grace and dignity. But scratch beneath the glossy surface, and what you really get is an angry lecture delivered in designer heels, full of rehearsed passion but lacking genuine depth or insight.
She never has a positive word to say about anything. And the latest example was when she went on this other guy's podcast, Jay Shetty. She goes and sits down with him, and he asks her, what are you afraid of? And she starts off by saying, well, my fears aren't for me. I think about the streets. My fears aren't for me.
Well, in this current climate for me, it's, what's happening to immigrants.
I travel in a 4-car motorcade.
Victor Davis Hanson ignited the second act of this roast by dissecting the strange and persistent phenomenon of Michelle Obama's permanent victim complex. Here's a woman who vacationed like royalty, lived rent-free in the most powerful house on earth, and walked away with a multi-million-dollar media empire. Yet somehow she still manages to act like America owes her a heartfelt apology. At some point, playing the oppression card while hosting lavish Netflix specials stops being inspiring and starts feeling more like a calculated insult to those who actually struggle.
After all, I'm Michelle Obama. She actually says this. And then she says, but, I worry for my girls because, not that much because they are sort of recognizable, but I'm worried about them.
So it's not the fear for myself anymore. I drive around in a 4-car motorcade with a police escort. I'm Michelle Obama. I do still worry about my daughters in the world, even though they are somewhat recognized.
Megyn Kelly couldn't resist diving headfirst into Michelle Obama's carefully curated contradictions. Michelle claims to hate politics, yet she never misses a chance to weaponize every social issue as if she's on a non-stop campaign rally. She insists she's just like everyone else, even while comfortably residing in her $12 million Martha's Vineyard mansion. It's like trying to convince the audience she's relatable while filming from the very peak of Mount Olympus, miles above ordinary people's lives. And somehow, the press eagerly devours this carefully crafted narrative like it's gospel truth, without question or skepticism.
Actually said, because I think he had the vision of splicing her in. And you almost couldn't believe them. It was like, I think you might need to go back and check that. There's no way that must have come from some other parody. But no, time and time again, it was her exact words. She's even more miserable than we portrayed her.
Even more. And since then, I can't wait to see how this is received because I think it's another banger. But she did that podcast recently where she said, I think you talked about it.
Then came the ultimate sleight of hand, the transformation from First Lady to untouchable pop culture saint. Victor Davis Hanson pointed out the deep irony of a woman who constantly decried political divisiveness while spending 8 years belittling every opposing idea as if it were beneath her Ivy League wisdom. If self-righteousness were an Olympic sport, Michelle Obama would be loaded with multiple gold medals and have her own Wheaties box on the shelf. Her uncanny ability to spin a simple, mundane anecdote about eating vegetables into a dramatic tale of personal struggle was almost artistic in its execution. This was someone who took cafeteria carrots and turned them into a federal political issue. And while schools across the country were choking down cardboard-flavored tofu nuggets, Michelle was probably enjoying gourmet meals behind the scenes. Her entire nutrition campaign felt less like genuine public service and more like an expertly crafted masterclass in virtue signaling, pointless, preachy, and meticulously packaged for the press to consume without question.